Greetings, esteemed audience, and welcome to the Age of Steel and Fire. Today, we continue our epic journey through the great battles that forged the fate of civilizations. In 1896, high in the mountains of Ethiopia, a battle was fought, not just for land, but for the dignity of an entire continent. As European empires carved up Africa, one nation stood defiant: Ethiopia. Facing the rifles of Italian invaders, Emperor Menelik II did not retreat. He summoned warriors from across the highlands, preparing for a clash that would echo through history. This was not just a battle, it was a declaration. We belong to no one. The Battle of Adwa begins. As always, we begin with the historical context before the battle. In the late 19th century, Africa was being carved up by European empires in the scramble for colonies. Italy, a newly unified nation, sought to prove itself by conquering Ethiopia, the last independent kingdom in the Horn of Africa. In 1889, Italy signed the Treaty of Wachel with Ethiopia. But the Italian and Amharic versions said very different things. The Italian version claimed Ethiopia became an Italian protectorate. The Amharic version merely said Ethiopia could use Italy for foreign diplomacy. When Emperor Menelik II discovered the deception, he rejected the treaty and began preparing for war. Meanwhile, Italy, under domestic political pressure, launched a military campaign to teach Ethiopia a lesson. But they miscalculated everything: the terrain, the Ethiopian spirit, and Menelik II's military genius. Ethiopia was not a tribal backwater. It was a kingdom with millennia of history, a royal court, artillery, and a ruler who knew how to blend tradition with modernity. And in the mountains of Adwa, Menelik II would prove it to the world. Building on the historical context, we now analyze Ethiopia's strategy before the Battle of Adwa. Emperor Menelik II was not just a resilient leader, he was a brilliant strategist. Instead of confronting the Italians head-on, he devised a comprehensive plan: mobilize armies from across the kingdom, Shoa, Tigray, Gajem, Wallo, assemble over 100,000 troops, including cavalry, infantry, and artillery, many trained in European tactics. Use the mountainous terrain of Adwa to divide, encircle, and confuse the Italian forces. Menelik II did not rush. He waited, observed, and struck when the Italians were exhausted, fragmented, and undersupplied. He also ordered his forces not to attack first, letting Italy initiate the conflict, thus preserving Ethiopia's moral high ground and diplomatic leverage. Most notably, he employed a strategy of psychological warfare: let the Italians believe Ethiopia was weak, then unleash overwhelming force from multiple directions. This was not just war, it was a strategic chess match. And Menelik II was the master player. Now that we've understood Ethiopia's strategy, let's analyze Italy's plan and its fatal mistakes. In 1896, Italy was a young nation, barely 30 years unified. Eager to prove itself as an imperial power, it rushed into Africa, unprepared, overconfident, and misinformed. General Oreste Baratieri, a veteran officer, led the campaign. But he was torn between two forces: pressure from Rome demanding a swift victory to appease public opinion, and the harsh reality on the ground: limited troops, weak logistics, and hostile terrain. Baratieri split his army into 3 columns, marching overnight through rugged mountains to launch a surprise attack. But he miscalculated badly: the terrain severed communication between columns. Ethiopian scouts knew the routes and set ambushes. Italian troops lacked water, food, and effective artillery support. Worse still, Baratieri had no idea that Menelik II had mobilized over 100,000 troops, vastly outnumbering the Italians. When the battle began, the Italian forces were isolated, surrounded, and crushed piece by piece. Italy's greatest mistake wasn't tactical, it was psychological. They underestimated Ethiopia. And the price was one of the most humiliating defeats in colonial history. After days of tense marching, at dawn on March 1, 1896, the Battle of Adwa began. The Italian army was split into 3 columns: Albert I, Arimandi, and de Bormida, each navigating treacherous terrain, hoping for a surprise attack. But they didn't know Ethiopian forces were ready, knowing every path and mountain pass. Albertone's column was hit first. Aramo and Shone warriors descended from the hills, shattering the Italian formation. Aramandi tried to counterattack, but was trapped between two Ethiopian divisions. Debormida, furthest from the center, was ambushed and killed on the field. The Italians panicked. No communication between columns, no artillery support, no retreat. Within hours, over 6,000 Italian soldiers lay dead, thousands more captured. General Baratieri fled, leaving the battlefield in case. Meanwhile, Ethiopian forces held their formations, coordinating across divisions. They didn't just win, they proved that an African nation could defeat a European empire through strategy, unity, and courage. The Battle of Adwa ended. But its echoes would resonate for generations. The Battle of Adwa was not just a military victory, it was a geopolitical shockwave. Strategically, Ethiopia preserved its sovereignty, forcing Italy to sign the Treaty of Addis Ababa, recognizing Ethiopia as an independent nation. The Italian government collapsed, and Europe was stunned. A European empire had been defeated by an African kingdom, an unprecedented event. Historically, Adwa became a symbol of anti-colonial resistance. Liberation movements across Africa, Asia, and Latin America cited Adwa as inspiration. Leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, and even Malcolm X praised its legacy. Adwa Day, March 1st, became a national holiday in Ethiopia, celebrated as a day of pride and resistance. But beyond victory, Adwa left behind a message. No nation is born to be ruled, and no empire is invincible. That's why, more than a century later, Adwa still lives in the memory of those who cherish freedom.